All right, welcome along to Team 33's World Cup coverage. First interview that we're going to be doing is with Alan Moore, Irishman based in Moscow. He presents Capital FM Sports' coverage, and he's been on with us a couple of times before. First off, I asked him what the atmosphere in Russia is like and whether World Cup fever has actually started to take hold.
We've had pretty, Raf, thanks for having me on. Great to see you. We've had pretty miserable weather yesterday and today, actually the last few days. Our days of summer, I think, were used up in May. So it's dampened down the fever a little bit. We could say that there's a World Cup chill going around.
Yeah, and, you know, obviously stadiums haven't seemed to be an issue in comparison to other World Cups, but are there any concerns infrastructure-wise or even when it comes to transport and logistics that maybe haven't hit the headlines?
I don't think there will most likely be some little logistics issues that will crop up, but they will only come up during the course of the World Cup. Right now, everything's flowing quite well. Of course, a colleague of yours is over here, and he was able to find his way around the Aero Express from the airport into the centre and the Moscow Metro pretty okay. So far, so good. The stadiums, of course, they are looking great. They've all had test matches played in them. The surroundings of them are working well. Everything, as we've seen, has been moving slowly into place, and now it does seem to have clicked in. But again, as I say, we might see some small logistics issues once it kicks off, but I don't think it's anything that will be insurmountable.
Yeah, one of the other things as well, of course, it maybe getting to know the Russian character a little bit more, but is it the type of country in terms of the population that gets excited about these type of major tournaments? Or I know, as you said earlier, there is that little bit of excitement and there is that bit of World Cup fever kicking in, but is that a kind of natural thing in Russia?
It is and it isn't. I mean, for ice hockey, it certainly is because that's a national sport. For football, when the team is doing well, people, of course, get pumped up with it. It's a bit, I think it's quite unnerving. A lot of foreign media who are here are kind of saying, oh, the Russians aren't even, like, there's nobody on the streets, like today. Yesterday as well. Well, normally because in the summer everybody goes to their dacha, their little like country cottage outside of Moscow or outside the cities, especially Moscow. And of course it's a holiday weekend here. So today is a bank holiday and tomorrow's a bank holiday. So things won't really kick off until Wednesday. And I think we'll see people starting to get excited about it because tomorrow is Russia Day. The 12th of June is Russia Day. So that's more important right now for most Russians. But it's now starting to catch on that, my God, it's here. So people will start to get excited. People have already chosen teams who they're going to support. So a lot of the smaller teams like Panama, Iceland, Mexico as well. A lot of Mexicans here, everywhere Mexicans. And people are liking them and liking the colour. Argentina, of course, people want to see them do well because of Messi and so on. Brazil, people are excited about. But I think that people here will start to grow in affection for the World Cup once it kicks off. Because everyone here, including myself, we're tired of waiting for it, and then we just wanted to start. Yeah, definitely. And the atmosphere, even here for a country that hasn't qualified now, we're kind of getting into that mood as well for the tournament. But in regards to social issues, so just on ESPN, I was reading about some of the hooligan groups, and they've been cracked down a bit. But, the worry probably was kind of reading that piece was whether it'd be kind of like isolated incidents rather than, that pack mentality. So it might be one attack here and there. In terms of steps that have been taken, what have the government been at? And do you envisage any issues in that sense and maybe even slight worries? Yeah, there are worries. I mean, I was speaking with from Capital FM, our programme director, and he's from Volgograd, and he'll be down there to watch England. He'll actually be there for 3 games in Volgograd for, I think it's a week and a bit. There'll be 3 games there. There is a worry that English fans are going to provoke incidents, just with regular locals or with other fans, even especially with Polish fans. Polish fans are worried because they have in the past shown a lot of aggression and kind of there have been unsavory incidents with them. The local hooligan groups for just over a year now, since last summer, and I was there at meetings when we were discussing how to, crack down on discrimination here, which you and I have discussed in the past, that, it was just this like deep-seated misunderstanding, or let's just say stupidity, that people thought that they could do something because, well, this is supporting our team, or this is funny, or it's okay, he understands it. Whereas now people are starting to realize, there is this, it's a very fast growing realization that say racism or discriminatory behavior or violence is just not the done deal. So the FSB, the security service, they have infiltrated for, I'd say, probably 2.5 years now. They've infiltrated these hooligan groups, the hardcore ultras. Really, since 2016, that was the biggest shame for Russia. I mean, it was a shame for Russia. There's no two ways about it. Doesn't matter what provoked them or what went on beforehand. The behaviour of the fans was despicable. The small group of fans, I should say. And all those fan leaders and so on, they've either been arrested, put in jail, they're still in jail, or they have been given banning orders. So a lot of the police have gone around locally and told these guys, you stay out of the way, stay out of the city, stay away from games, because they know what will happen is that they'll basically just be put into jail for quite a long period of time. Those who have banning orders have, I think it's 7 years jail sentence hanging over them. So this won't be a nice easy jail. This will be out in a colony where they have to work for their supper. So that's been there. Yes, Raf, I do think there is a danger of an isolated incident. I think it could be just a row between locals, like lads in a bar or something like that. But I think for organised fan violence from the Russian side, I do not see it happening. Of course, I can't say 100%, but I don't see it happening at all.
Yeah, because of course we spoke about, as you said, the social issues last time out. Well, about a year ago, a year to the World Cup. But I think one of the things actually within the stadiums, I know there's concerns about racism, for example, aimed at players of colour. But I wonder, given the type of fans that are going to be there, we're not going to see ultras, for example, the CSKA Moscow ultras, or from any other club either. So I wonder, is that something maybe it's more of a threat outside, again, the stadiums rather than within it? Because the ultras are initially, for the most part, they are the problem.
Yeah. It's the ultras, Raf. You're dead right in that. And I mean, you know better than I am, because you've got a deep knowledge of football, like not just like a very, very narrow, like global. And you've spoken to a lot of people from around the world who are involved in football, from Rwanda to the USA to Germany to here in Russia. So you understand the kind of what goes on around it. And a lot of times it's not the sort of the inner core ultras or the hardcore ultras. It's the idiots who want to act up and show how tough they are. They're the ones who end up getting caught or end up causing the most trouble, because they just don't have the off switch. In terms of with racism and discrimination or chance, the worry for me would not be the Russian fans. It would be actually Mexican and Argentinian, Brazilian fans, because they have, at the Confederations Cup here, I think it was the Chilean fans were warned for their homophobic abuse of players or abuse of black players as well. So, or players of colour, as you said. So there are issues with some of the ultra groups, like say Mexican ultras, as I've been told by Mexican ultra groups here, is that they've come across, normally they would be kind of battling each other in Mexico, but they have a sort of a truce for the World Cup. But that doesn't mean that they'll behave themselves. Outside the stadium, I don't think they will do anything. But inside the stadium, there could be issues with some of the foreign fans. I mean, we've seen English fans misbehaving, or their chance for behaviour. But again, I think FIFA will crack down on it very, very heavily. I think for outside the stadium, there are issues in terms of if fans, as anywhere, we can't all be Irish or even Northern Irish fans and behave and have fun and be great guests. Not all fan groups do that, and not all nations have that kind of let's just say jolly mentality. I hate to say it, but that kind of like that openness and the sort of the having what's a crack or fitting in.
Yeah.
That works very well in Russia, because 10 years ago, when the Champions League final was on, the Man United and Chelsea fans were brilliantly behaved. They were impeccably behaved, and they were absolutely adored by the Moscow public. That was the greatest advert for English football and the English fan groups, because they really behave well. They drank, they ate, they sang, they met in the streets. There was no violence between the fan groups, and the locals took them in, because there was that fear, oh my God, these guys are going to kill us all, because they were loud, they were mouthy, but they behaved very, very well. So hopefully we won't see anything outside the grounds. And of course, as Mr. Duggan can tell you, there's a huge police and security presence on the streets. There's 4 of the heavy duty, what you call the Rosgvardia, the Russian guards. They are police, military or military police. So they will basically be, there's 4 of them in every metro station. They just walk up and down the platform, and you do not want to run foul of these boys.
Well, I think John Duggan is well warned, so he won't be running foul of anything. Anyway, just on the pitch as well. So Russia, obviously we've seen the group for the last 6 months. We know exactly what they've got. They've got Egypt, Uruguay, and also they're starting off against Saudi Arabia on Thursday. So it's a relatively kind draw, and they haven't won a game since October against South Korea. And now, granted, in between that time, they've faced Brazil, Argentina, France and Spain in those 7 games since. Now, you could argue on one hand they'll be battle-hardened, but the other worry is maybe, battle-hardened or not, they're just not good enough. I don't know, where do you fall on that debate?
Raf, I wanted to be very positive, always be very, very positive, hope to do well. There's many people here are tipping them to finish bottom of their group, which is likely. If they don't beat Saudi Arabia on Thursday, then they will finish bottom of the group. It's not an easy group, because you've got Egypt with Mo Salah, who's one of the best strikers in Europe.
Presuming he's fit.
When and hopefully he is fit. Well, hopefully he's in Chechnya right now with Ramzan Kadyrov, so they'll get him fit in anyway. You've got Uruguay, who are just a sensational side. They're a very good side. Not dark horses, but they could be, because they've got an easy run through the draw, really, if they play it right. You've then got Saudi Arabia are no mugs. They came out of a very strong Asian group. They got good experienced players and players who can score goals as well. Russia's group is not that easy. On first glance, people went, "Oh, great, Saudi Arabia, Egypt will beat them." But we can no longer look at these Middle Eastern or Asian sides or African sides as whipping boys, because they've got players who are playing in Europe. Even a couple of I think 2 or 3 of the Saudis have been playing in Spain. Okay, albeit with reserve sides, but they still have that experience. Most of the Russian players, apart from Denis Cheryshev, wouldn't get a kick of a ball in Spain, no matter what division they're playing in. The Russian team has been hit hard with injuries, and also they had 1 shot on target and scored a goal from it, but 1 shot on target in the last 2 games against Austria and Turkey. And of course, Austria went on to beat Germany and then got hockeyed by Brazil. I think it was yesterday, 3-0. No shame in that. However, Russia are playing terribly. They have a very poor side. They're very susceptible to long balls. Like, direct play will kill them. They had to bring Sergei Nashevich, who's a 38-year-old defender who, he's now going into minus territory in terms of pace. Like, he's lost some yards. He's still a decent defender for a Russian league level, but he's 38 years of age, and was called out because, he's linked to the head coach Stanislav Cherchesov, his player agency. So he's overlooked Igor Denisov, the Lokomotiv captain. Of course, Lokomotiv, as if you were kind of bringing us towards that, Lokomotiv won the title. He was the best midfielder, national, local or foreign, in the Russian league this season, and he's not going to the World Cup. You've got Denis Glushikov, the Spartak Dynamo, who again is a leader, not as good as Denisov, but still a very good player. He's not going as well. Again, he didn't sign up with Cherchesov's player agency. You've got other players who should be going. You've got 2 strikers. One of them, Fyodor Smolov, who, when he plays, he can score 1 goal and 3 when he plays. And you've got another player, Artem Juba, who is good enough to play in the Premier League for a top 10 club, but just is too lazy and likes his Big Macs.
Yeah, I remember him from the Euros, actually. He was, Russia were generally poor anyway, so he didn't necessarily stand out. Smolov as well, I've heard little bits about. I saw a bit of him at the Confederations Cup, but again, it's not the strikers they had in the past, like a Kershikov or that level.
No. I mean, if like we had a few weeks ago, we had Dmitry Sichov, who was at that time, and he went on to play, of course, in Marseille and won the League Cup with Marseille. You know, this sensationally fast, skillful striker. You look at the goals, just type in Sichov goals in YouTube, and you see this like array of just wonder goals, and not just wonder goals from tap-ins, head, left foot, right foot, dribble past defenders, like just sneak into back posts. You know, this wonderful player who could play midfield or attack. They don't have anyone like that. They have the Miranchuk twins, Alexei and Anton from Lokomotiv. One of them would be deployed as kind of an extra striker, or a sort of playing just behind the front man. But even in midfield, they have a lad Samedov, Alexander Samedov, who you know, he when on his day, he 1 in every 4 games he has a blinder, and the other 3 he just hides. Smolov hid for most of the season. He scored a couple of goals against Lokomotiv at the end of the season, but the rest of his goals were against the bottom 4 or 5 clubs. So. You know, they always push rumours that he's going to West Ham or he's going to here, but no one ever bothers taking him.
And what about Golovin? Because I keep hearing good stuff about him.
Golovin, he's a good player. He needs to get out of Russia. Of course, they were linking him to Juventus, and I think it was sort of like some local English kind of based journalists, or Russian-based English journalists, or they were trying to say, well, he's going to Man United, but Man United wouldn't take him in a month of Sundays. But he's a very good player. He can turn on the skill, but he can get marked out of the game as well. He doesn't like getting a kick. Fyodor Chalov, who's a kind of again an on-off striker, but a great talent, a young lad as well, isn't being brought. There's other players as well who, even the goalkeeper Igor Akinfeyev, who is about 5 years past his best. He's still young, but he's had injuries. He's had the incident in Brazil when he shot green light into his eyes. He got hit with a firecracker in the back and got burns on his back in the game against Montenegro. So the squad is very poor. It's kind of like been built up to lose. And Cherchesov...
Yeah, just on Akinfeyev, actually, just sorry to interrupt, but Akinfeyev, I remember him being linked with top Premier League clubs at the time, a few years ago. And then every time I've seen him, and I don't see him very often, but it's just, you know, these kind of errors that maybe Loris Karius would have been kind of those type of errors, you know, the same ones that would have come up in that Champions League final, just really glaring ones. And then you kind of think back, this was a player being linked, I think, with Man United at the time.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal were buying him, Man United were buying him. He's a replacement for this, a replacement for that. He came through like, you know, youngest player, like youngest goalkeeper for CSKA and captain. So he's a lovely guy. He's a very good player, but he's gone. He would be, you know, we have the kind of it comes from hunting dogs, and then we have it in boxing where someone's gun shy, where you see a boxer when a punch is only fainted towards him and he's already afraid to get hit. This is what's wrong with Akinfeyev. He's afraid to go into the ball. We also have Roman Zobnin, who's not going as well, which is a huge loss. He's again a very, very talented player, and a Spartak player, should go abroad right away. Speaks lovely English, a lovely lad. He's not going. So you know, and they're also missing some players through injury as well. So it's probably the worst group of players Russia could pick from in any case, and the worst coach Russia could pick from in any case.
Oh dear.
So if they get out of the group, it'll be nearing America. I would love to see them get out of the group. I will support them. I will hope that they will, because as you know, football especially, but sport in any case, is the only thing that will bring people onto the streets together and joy. It's the only thing that'll bring a country together. We know that ourselves. Like, I mean, when Leitrim get a good run in the Connacht Championship, the whole county, well, all 15 people all start celebrating. I'm joking, of course.
I know.
But it is, and this is what it'll do for Russia, because I saw it in 2008 here, when they had a great run, of course, to the semi-finals, and they came up against sensational sides and beat them. I mean, really, really good sides. And you know, even in ice hockey, when they won the Olympic medal. This year, people were a little bit down on it, but a couple of years ago, 2014, when things weren't great in Russia, and you know, we the issues in Crimea and Ukraine, and things were going badly on every front, and Russia went and won the World Ice Hockey Championship. the place was filled. The bars were filled. People were screaming. You could hear people in the next apartment just like delighted, cheering. So it'd be great to see Russia do well, but the great crop of players finished. They've all retired pretty much, except Ignacevich, who's back. The great crop of players have retired, or are already drifted down the divisions. In like the last kind of death throes of the Soviet Union football system is gone. They put in a manager who is he's tainted in a lot of ways, and they really needed two years ago when when Leonid Slutsky, who's a very good coach and a lovely guy as well, when he was leaving, I suggested here, and I pushed that they should sign Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane, and if they had, I would be tipping Russia to get to the quarterfinals or maybe the semi-finals, but with Stanislav Cherchesov, no chance.
Yeah, well, we've kept hold of those two anyway. But I suppose the final point before I let you go, obviously Saudi Arabia, as you said, there's a bit of a threat there from them. Maybe they're not the best team in the world, obviously, but they still have a little bit of a threat that they can pose to a fairly weak Russian side. But in terms of the mentality of this Russian side, if they go a goal behind against Saudi Arabia, would you be extremely worried about them? And say if they lose as well, are you kind of writing them off then for the rest of that term? Like they would have no hope, I guess, against Uruguay or Egypt.
I heard a suggestion today from an English journalist that, and this is going to push from, it was tongue in cheek, but it's going to gain ground, is that just like with South Korea or with France in '98 and so on, that there'd be, let's say, referees and officials would be on Russia's side. I don't think that's going to work because the whole world will be watching this and it's not going to happen. I would have preferred if Uruguay had been the first opposition, because losing to them would galvanise the team and say, right, that's out of the way. Now we win the last two matches and we go through. If they don't beat Saudi Arabia, now they could show up and just dazzle and just light up the Luzhniki. It could happen. The weather's going to be good for it. It's going to go about 14, 16 degrees with a little threat of rain. So the weather's going to be perfect for playing football. It'll suit Russia much more than Saudi Arabia. If they go behind, can they fight back? Raf, it's a great question, because I think with another coach, they might be able to lift their game. But I think with this group, there's no defined leader. There's Kutepov, who's a fiery character. Samedov can lift a team and perform others. And Zagoev as well, who's still only in his 20s. He's only 28, I think it is, who I saw 10 years ago, or 11 years ago now, playing down in the second division here, the third level. He can light up the world. He should have been
He was outstanding at Euro 2012, I remember.
Exactly. This is a guy, Raf, who, if Dundalk could sign him, I'd be delighted. He won't go to Dundalk yet, maybe give a year or two. But if he could go to England and be put into a side that would appreciate his talent, he would be unbelievable. He's sitting here, he's on a good salary, and he's gone past his sell-by date in terms of movement. But he can turn it on. With the coach in place, I think the players are very, very afraid. I would be fearful that if they go a goal down against Saudi, that they could drift from it. But then again, they'll have about 50 to 60,000 Russians roaring them on. And, if there's one thing we know is that in that Olympic Stadium, when in the 1980 Olympics, they used to open the big doors. Well, they're still there. They could open the big doors when the Russian throwers were coming in. So the Russian throwers, they would open the doors, and the fans, they said, would almost blow the javelin or the shot put or the hammer down the field. I think with the Russian fans in Luzhniki on Thursday, they'll make the team fight. But if they go a goal down, it's going to be tough to see them coming back. But you never know. You never know. They could have to look at the Irish, and I'll be wearing a Moscow Shamrock shirt there, so I'll try to rub some off them.
Good stuff. Well, it's a World Cup. Anything can happen, as we've seen over the years, especially in opening games. But Alan, thanks a million for taking the time to chat to me. Nice jersey anyway as well. What one is it? Is that Moscow?
It's Moscow Shamrocks.
Oh yeah, good
Moscow
stuff.
Shamrocks.
So
we'll have Mr. Duggan out with us on Sunday for a bit of a training session as well.
Yeah, definitely we'll be catching up with him as well. But Alan, thanks a million for taking the time, and we'll chat to you soon.
Thanks, Raf.